So, the transatlantic slave trade, at least the beginnings of it, happened because African rulers enslaved their fellow Africans and sold them into slavery to other powers. Um, and a lack of understanding about why this happened has led to a number of incorrect and frankly racist theories about why, about blacks being savage or more violent or not caring about each other. And so I'm making this video to sort of explain uh, why a lot of that happened. Uh, but before I do that, I would like to give a hypothetical situation. Uh, so let's say that, right now, today, the Chinese government offered like $10,000 and an AK-47 to any U.S. citizen who kills another U.S. citizen. And also, let's say that for whatever reason, the U.S. government was unable to stop this from happening. Well, what do you think would happen in that situation if every murderer in the United States was given $10,000 and an AK-47? I think that at first, most people would not take the Chinese up on the offer. Uh, I think that most Americans, out of a sense of patriotic duty or just basic human decency, would not kill their fellow Americans. But some would. Uh, there would be some amoral sociopaths and opportunists who would take the opportunity to just kill people for money and power. And I'm sure that a few of those people would think, hey, let's turn this into a business. So what they do is they'd use part of their $10,000 to hire other killers, arm them with the weapons they got, and so they would hire more people, kill more people, get more money and guns, use those to hire more people, then kill more people, get more money and guns, etc. It's a cycle, and these groups would grow exponentially as they kill more people and get more money and weapons. And so what would happen is that it would go from lone killers to gangs to militia groups to possibly even full-on governments instituting horrible regimes of just killing their own people for money and power. And once this starts to happen, a lot of people who initially would not have partook in the violence will begin to, just as a matter of defense, since, at that point, if you don't start killing people and getting money and weapons for yourself, then somebody else is going to come in, conquer your community, kill you, and get money that way. And so if somebody's going to die, then you might as well at least protect your own community, your own family. And so at that point, there will be factions all over the country. It will be a civil war. Even people who initially did not want to be violent will basically be forced to either kill their fellow people or die themselves. And so a lot of people will choose to become murderers, to even just to save themselves, if not for the money that they would want. And, well, a few people would get rich off of this. The United States as a whole would become immeasurably poorer, just because so many people are dying, so much violence, instability, etc. It would just be a horrible situation. And I bring up that hypothetical example because that is basically what ended up happening in Africa, which caused the transatlantic slave trade. That uh, Western, basically, merchants, business people came in, offered any African ruler who was willing to enslave their fellow Africans a bunch of money and a bunch of guns. And predictably, what happened was that the most ruthless slavers became rich and powerful. They used that money and power to enslave even more people, and thus get even more powerful and wealthy. And then at that point, everybody else, all the other rulers and kings in that part of Western Africa, had to, decide: do we either do nothing and get conquered by another group, or do we partake in slavery so that we can get the money and the weapons to defend ourselves? And it's a very tough situation since, they didn't want their own communities to be conquered and enslaved, but it's also obviously immoral to enslave others. And so I guess the main takeaway for this video is that you don't need a savage population for tragedies like this to occur, for just mass enslavement of millions of people, mass violence and death. All you need is a bad economic incentive scheme, pretty much. This could happen to any society if the worst people are rewarded with money and power, and that will breed a lot more horrible people doing horrible things. And I guess the second takeaway is that, a number of conservatives in the West try to gloss over or justify, Western participation in slavery by saying that, it wasn't us who enslaved them, it was their own African, rulers who enslaved fellow Africans, so it's not really our fault. And, I mean, it is true to an extent that, yes, it was not Europeans going in enslaving people, it was Africans enslaving other Africans. And I don't want to, justify the rulers who enslaved fellow Africans, because that I don't support them either. But what you should remember there is that would not have happened if Western money and weapons wasn't going to those rulers in exchange for slaves. It was the Western demand for slaves that prompted all of this violence and slavery to happen in the first place. It would not have just happened on its own like that. So, this is one of my more rambly videos, but hopefully it gives you somewhat of a better understanding about this particular moment in history and why it happened as it did. So, I'll catch you in the next one.